Hello my friends, it's your brother Hampton. I am a content creator and business owner who has gotten hundreds of millions of views over social media over the past few years, and I want to share my ideas on how to make viral content and why you may not always want to make the most viral content. First of all, to put this into perspective, by the time you choose the type of channel and type of business or type of endeavor that you want to make, you have already possibly narrow down the amount of views that are possible to you or reasonably possible to you. What I mean by this is, let's say you make a YouTube channel and your username is Matt Gaming. There's probably already a Matt Gaming out there, shout out to them. But you choose Matt Gaming. Well, think of this. Do your parents want to watch gaming content? Possibly. Does your uncle? Do your friends? Does everyone you know want to watch gaming content? Not everyone wants to watch gaming content, and that's okay, but by choosing a genre, choosing something your channel's about, even naming your channel, you've already narrowed down the pool. So from this, we start to realize a very valuable lesson, but let's go a little bit beyond that. So even after you choose your channel's overall theme, if it's going to be about gaming, fitness, fishing, as I often use. Let's go beyond that a little bit, because most everyone is going to choose something the channel is about. But beyond that point, how we can make viral content within that, what I have found is that the thing that matters most is not necessarily editing or even thumbnails or really detailed things people get into. Not even necessarily how you make the story of the video, but really the idea of the video. So after genre, I would say, after theme, I would say it's the idea of how you want to style the content, what kind of content that you want to make. That can generally impact the amount of total, reasonably possible views that your video or videos can get. And to understand why this is, I want to dive into a little bit of the history of social media, of what makes viral content and how that's changed over the years. Because originally it was, if you think, this might be like a decade plus ago, when the first social media channels came out, I think a lot of them really followed kind of the logic of email. And if you've been around for a few years now, you've noticed that your feed on all the social platforms has changed somewhat in accordance to this, differently depending on which platform it is, but they've all kind of gone this way. So in the past, it was similar to email, to where if you had a lot of followers, then your video would get seen by a lot of people. So if you made content that got a lot of followers, let's say you got 100,000 people, 200,000 people, 300,000 people, 1 million people, these numbers were bigger back then. Now it feels like everyone has 1 million followers. Like everyone, like you scroll through just the default YouTube feed, you're gonna see a lot of people with channels that have 1 million plus followers. But back then it was more and more rare because there weren't as many creators. So you would follow all these accounts you would like and you would see something from them. And consequentially, from the other perspective, if you were to post something, because there weren't that many content creators, a large part of your audience would see it. If you had 300,000 followers, then 200,000 might see it, 250,000 might see it, even more, because it would reach new people. So that was pretty cool. But around the advent of TikTok, and possibly a little bit before that, it started to change how your news feed was, how your social feed was. Because what they realized there, and you'll see why everyone was forced to change there, is they realized that people's interests and the things they wanted to see changed, right, over the course of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, even less than that. Now, to be fair to these social media platforms, some of them have only been around 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So it wasn't immediately 15 years. It wasn't immediately known, but it became very important as things went along, that over time, even from the content creator's perspective, sorry, it's a little bit cold here, you'll find that your followers just aren't engaging with your content as much anymore, even if they see it, but I'm just not as into, college jokes as I am when I was in college, or as I was when I was in college. I'm not as into gaming as I was when I was younger. Now I have more time that I want to spend with family, and I spend time reading or something, or I play D&D, something like that. So our interests change over time. And what TikTok and platforms like it found is that instead of the social graph, which is what it was before, people you followed, they found that people engaged a lot more with something called the interest graph. So the interest graph is things that the algorithm actually thinks you like, which is a little bit different than what you say you like. And believe me, this is true because I have a fitness channel, which is my main channel, and a combination of people thinking they need to get more fit, which is great, and a combination of how I present the content makes a higher percentage than average subscribe to the channel. But I don't always have more views than average. right? It's because people say they want to see this, but they're actually watching something else, which is totally fine. But that's just something I've noticed from my channel, which is it's grown followers more than average views. Grown followers faster than growing average views, and that's something I have to balance out. Because you might say you want fitness, but you actually like cooking, which is cool. You might say you want serious fitness, but you actually like funny fitness. So this is interesting. So like this will go a little bit more into viral content later on. Or you just might spend more time watching interesting mystery shorts and videos. So this is where it gets interesting, because how does the algorithm know what you actually want to see? Well, so there's like the like and comment, subscribe thing. That was kind of the previous generation of how we indicated to the algorithm that we were interested in the video, which it still has a role, I believe, depending on the social platform. And then they'll say it has a role, but it played a relatively minor role compared to what was usually referred to as retention. So this was watch time, right? How long you spend watching certain videos. If you spend a lot more time watching cooking videos, it's like interesting. So you like those cooking videos, or you spend a lot of time watching story videos. So you like that. Now, once again, this is aligned with the social media platforms and their interests, because the longer they keep you on those platforms, the more ad you'll watch and hopefully the better time you'll have. So it's not always the most helpful to only think of it as poor intentions. Like, well, they want to keep you on there so you'll watch ads. They also want you to have a good experience, whether for their own benefit or not. It's usually, ideally, for everyone's benefit. They want you to have a good experience and stay on the platform. And ideally, when you turn on YouTube or whatever platform, they want you to think, this is great, so you come back and you have a good time. Now, and they use watch time to measure that. So there's watch time, like how often you watch a video, there's rewatch, and nowadays there's a little bit more. So it's always evolving. Nowadays, how much we share a video seems to really play a big impact, especially on a platform like Instagram, which is mentioned that shares are really important because they want you to send them. Now, an important lesson that we can take from those things, and something you may have realized is, well, the content that you may want to make for whatever purpose that you have, that may be different than if you were to think, well, what content can I make that will make people watch it the longest? What content can I make that will make people the most likely to share it? Now, there is some correlation. I don't have a study for this, but I imagine as a content creator, there is a correlation between good content and those metrics. So people are probably more likely to watch good content, helpful content. You have to define that, first of all. Helpful content, they'll watch it for longer, watch it more often perhaps, and probably share it with friends because they're like, hey, this is a good recommendation. The same way you would see a good movie or a good TV show and then you would tell friends about it. If you saw a bad TV show or movie and you told your friends to watch it, they'd be like, well, clearly you don't know what you're talking about. That was a terrible TV show. Or maybe they would like it. But if it's bad, you generally don't want to share it. If it's good, you want to share it. So there's some correlation, but there's also obviously some things you can do that go beyond that. Like, people have noticed that memes get shared more often. So that's a complaint behind some content creators, where memes, funny videos, things that are easy to share, and things like send this to a friend, things like that are going to get shared more often than even perhaps like a very good video on fixing your car. Right? So that might be helpful, but funny, haha, you're like, I want to send this, I want to have a good time. So there's already assumptions, already an underlying factor to why someone's on a certain platform and how likely they are to engage with the content as a result. And to use an example, this is why it's a little bit harder, in my opinion, to want to teach and want to get a lot of views. Those interests are sometimes aligned, but sometimes they will diverge. So if you want to teach a subject, it's different than wanting to present it in a way that gets a lot of attention and has people watching it for a long time. But you might say, well, hang on, there are some teaching channels, famous ones on YouTube, like Mark Rober and Veritasium, and I'm sure that there are many others that teach things that people find fascinating and people want to dive in. And that's very true. There's a lot of channels like that, and those are really good channels, I think. I haven't seen that many from those particular channels, but there's a lot of educational channels that most people have probably engaged with in some way that make very well produced, very interesting, sometimes very funny videos that people want to watch. They like it and also they learn, and that's wonderful. And I kind of do that with fitness content. However, you'll notice that if you do this, it is usually top of funnel, broad teaching that appeals to a lot of people, something that a lot of people can understand, that people are still interested in. So that's why if you watch certain channels, you may notice that you go to different channels for entertainment, even if it's education, but you might find entertainment value in learning. and you go to different channels when you really want to learn deeply about something. If you ever needed to work on something in your house or needed to work on something in your car, you're like, man, let's say like Honda Accord 2007 engine oil change tutorial, something like that, right? And that video probably only at most probably has a couple thousand views, usually a couple hundred, but you're like, dang, this is a really good video because it really goes in depth. So that's a relatively clear, more on the extreme example of something that's very specific that goes beyond something that might get millions of views. Now imagine a good video that was titled how to fix your car 90% of the time, and it actually delivered on that. That would get a lot of views, millions of views. And that's a really cool idea. I would like to see that. If there was something that worked 90+% of the time, I would love to see that because I would want to know how to fix my car 9 out of 10 times. That sounds very handy. However, that's a different style than going really in depth and teaching something and showing something. And if that's what you want to do, if you want to go in depth on certain topics, then you kind of have to be okay with the idea of not always getting the most views. And this is more confusing than it might seem because for a lot of content creators, they'll say, yeah, I'm not in it for the views. I want to do this. They usually have some kind of altruism, which I think can be really good sometimes. I want to help people. I want to make people laugh. I want people to have a good time. That's great. But in your dashboard, the things that the platform gives you to help you out, usually front and center, you see subscribers, views, watch time, things like that. So it can sometimes seem a little disheartening, sometimes a little bit confusing when you've actually delivered a lot of value in a video that didn't get that many views, but really hit the people, really hit the couple thousand, couple 10, 20,000, couple hundred people that watched it. It doesn't really measure depth of impact on someone. You can kind of see it in comments, but you can't really quite see the depth. But you can see the width, how many people it actually saw. So it's something to keep in mind. So with all of that, how does that apply to how we can make viral social media content? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. You can first decide, if you have a clear vision, what you would like to do with your channel and your project. What do you want to make? So let's say you want to make music. You want to have a music channel and you want to inspire people. So it's not just about getting views. You want your music to touch people and encourage them to live a better life and treat each other better, or realize they have more worth than they might think they have right now, and just like give them a new lease on life and give them the motivation and drive to help themselves and then help others. That's a good channel idea. I like that idea. Now, out of the content and out of the music you can make within that sphere, what are 5 or so ideas that you would think would get the most views? And I'll give you something else in a little bit. But what can inspire people to want to click and watch all the way through and share with friends? Just something to think about. So an easy one that some people use is they collaborate with a famous person. So collaborating with a famous musician might get you a lot of views. Doing a cover song of a song that's popular right now, the song that's relevant right now because it's on people's minds, that might get a lot of views, especially if you add an interesting spin on it. So let's say there's a popular anime, and like anime openings are usually in Japanese, and a lot of anime fans don't speak Japanese. So some people do is they take that Japanese opening and they sing it in English or whatever language, and people of that language are like, interesting, I'll click on that. You can also change genres. So there's a famous pop song, you can do a blues version of it, a rock version of it, or the other way around. Or to use another example, let's say you want to do a cooking channel. So you could collaborate with famous cooks, especially famous cooks that are also social media content creators. That usually will get more views because people who know that person but may not necessarily know you might still click the video. And if they like you, they'll stick around. That's actually really important. I'll mention that in a bit. But you can think, what are some viral ideas within the sphere of what I want to make that people may want to see? So, to use the example similar to what I said before with the music channel, let's say there's a TV show going on right now that's really popular, and there's a sandwich the main character is always eating. Interesting. Maybe I could show people how to make that sandwich, especially if it's animated. So taking something that didn't really exist in the real world yet, or the concept of it didn't quite exist in the real world, and making it real, people might want to see that. Or if you want to do a health cooking channel, you could do, well, here's a healthier recipe for fast food items like burgers and sodas. Here's some tweaks that you can make easily at home. That might get some more views. But I said there was a couple of ways to look at it. So really, if you're not sure what you want to do, you could also get a general idea, not like quite music and cooking, but you have an idea of what you want to make. Think instead of some viral content in general and pick from there. It's like, what would people want to see that I could do? So they might want to see that new building in Italy that everyone online is talking about, and it's shaped funny. Interesting. Could I fly there and do a tour of it? So there's an idea. So like approaching from different angles will give you different concepts and you can do different things. However, like I've mentioned before, followers aren't completely as irrelevant as some people want to make them seem, because there are people who will watch your content and stick around. So you generally want an idea, an overall theme to the content. Like if you do cooking content, that's cool. But there's also viral content, like viral sports content you could do. But if people are used to cooking content and they suddenly see sports content, they might be confused. They usually won't unsubscribe, but they might be a little bit confused and not click. So generally having some kind of focus after you've chosen your focus will help your already engaged followers stay engaged. And that's really what I want to cover in this video, because how do we get people to stay engaged with a certain video? So I've talked about the idea. So when I started experimenting with this thing of watch time or retention is like interesting and sharing, I studied a lot of other viral social media content. And there was this thing where it's like very fast cut, fast. A lot of stuff happening. And there's analysis. There's people breaking that down, saying, oh, it's because when you change a scene, it resets the attention span. A lot of that is true. But what I found is if you have an uninteresting idea, you can try to scrounge more retention, get people to watch a little bit longer with that editing and really try to say, oh, there's like, wait until the end and we'll give you a prize. You can do all of that. But really what I found to be more powerful than that is just to have an interesting idea. Having an interesting idea will usually be a lot more impactful than all the other editing tricks you can do, all the other coloring tricks you'll do, all the other like outfit and wardrobe things you can do. See, I have a theory that when I dress a certain way that's different than the way I usually dress, it may not be as viewed as my other content. And this is a big topic that a lot of people might be interested in. I'm not dressed in my usual way, but it's a little bit cold, so I decided to dress this way. But all of that just doesn't seem to matter as much as the idea. This is why there are people with literally millions of dollars of production equipment, and they sometimes will not get as many views as someone on their smartphone. And if that seems unfair, think about in major movie productions where they spend literally hundreds of millions putting together a video, and sometimes people rather watch something that someone filmed on their smartphone on YouTube. So it's already interesting, and people do value that authenticity, and they do value the raw, I guess, the magic of the moment. So however you want to look at it, think of a Venn diagram. So you can think of all the most viral ideas, the things that, as far as you know, would get a lot of views, would pique a lot of interest, would get people to keep watching and want to share with their friends. And think of that as one circle of the Venn diagram. Like I mentioned in the beginning, that you may not want to choose the most viral content. Oh, some of it might seem scammy to you. Some of it might seem wrong. Some of it just seems like, I really don't want to do that. A good example of this is game show style content. That gets a lot of views, but I don't really want to run a game show. So that might get a lot of views, but it's not quite what I want to do. So the other circle that you can draw is stuff you reasonably want to do. And this can include things that you want to deliver, things that you're good at. Like I know fitness and I want to help people that struggle with it. So that's one sphere, one thing I can add. Now, in the overlay, and there is overlay, there almost always is some overlay, where that Venn diagram, those two bubbles overlap, that's where you can choose your ideas. And that usually have the most impact on getting your first viral video or your next viral video. I really hope this can help. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, my friend. And this might be a series, so let me know what else you want to see.